Check it out. They want it out. Someday soon you'll make a stop. You find it brings a smile to someone's heart. It's what's that? Changing time. No need to scream. Make your choice. No need to leave somebody's dream. It's what's that? Why, oh, why must time fly tonight? And hurt, don't you cry when I say I do. Time, oh time, give me time tonight. Why, oh, why must time fly tonight? And why don't you smile when I say love you? Time, oh time, give us time tonight.
A record of the delightful piece they're going to play this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, 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 your attention, please, attention, please, attention, please.
And now the moment we've been waiting for is here.
I have something to tell you.
The future's not our future, not our future, not our future.
I believe in the future. I believe in the future. I don't believe in miracles.
Can it be true? It must be true. No doubt. No doubt. Life is going on as normally as ever. But suddenly something seems to have happened. Suddenly something seems to have happened. Everybody seems to be staring in one direction. People seem to be even terrified. I want everybody to understand.
I don't understand.
We don't understand.
There are a lot of things we don't understand. I don't understand.
We need answers from you. What did you expect to find? What did you expect to find?
Their future.
It's your responsibility to do something about it.
Well, I have the key in my hand. All I have to find is the lock. The lock. The lock. The lock.
Now listen to me, all of you.
Oh, you're the bomb.
Pulma sen, pulma dismati there, the fuck me. Kalma, limit the summer school, I'm taking.
Kuma xool dal diine yow li nekk si yow moo ne si man li ne si man mooy di leen jàppale.
We should be using the ones that practice the picture for the sword and the stone. Back to the bone. Battle's not over, even when it's won. When a child is born into this world, it has no concept of homeless skin.
Seven seconds away, just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. It's not a second, 7 seconds away, or just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting. Waiting. J'assume les raisons qui nous poussent au centre de tout. J'aimerais qu'on oublie le coup pour qu'ils espèrent. Beaucoup de sentiments, de race qu'il faut, qui désespèrent. Je veux les gamins ouverts, des amis pour parler de leur peine, de leur joie pour qu'ils le vivent, des infos qui ne divisent pas. Changer. 7 seconds away. Just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. It's not a fake game. We're 7 seconds away. Or just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. Be waiting. Waiting. Voices
And there's a
million voices. For 7 seconds away, just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. Second, for 7 seconds away, or just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. It's not a second, 7 seconds away, just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. It's not a second, 7 seconds away, or just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. It's not a second, not a 7 seconds away, just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting.
In the winter as I walk, someone's got so green. You're stomping like my thumb. Our reflections out here. And small in the pale blue sky. Never know which way's up.
Take your seats and place your cell phones on silent. Our opening session will begin shortly.
Tribute Technology, the leading technology experts in funeral service, are working together with game-changing solutions to help serve families like never before. All in one place. We are committed to funeral service. Let's step forward together.
Are you confident you're getting what you're owed when it comes to your crematory's metal recycling? I'm going to let you in on a scary reality. The exact same drum of metals can get you vastly different returns from recycler to recycler. Look at this. Here's recycler A, recycler B, and this is what the same barrel got from us. I'm here to walk you through the steps you need to take to get the best return every single time. I have the secrets your recycler doesn't want you to hear and changes you may need to make in your own crematory. Don't miss out on a chance to increase your revenue by tens of thousands of dollars a year. Sign up for a free webinar today.
FT, the industry leader in cremation system equipment, known globally for its quality, safety, and efficiency, is now even better. Our FTech MaxLife system can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in maintenance costs over the life of your FT3 cremator. The MaxLife system utilizes specially molded lining blocks that eliminate traditional brick refractory and the downtime and high cost associated with maintaining it. You can almost double the time between those costly repairs with the FTech MaxLife system. If you're thinking about adding a crematory or replacing your old retorts, contact us today to ask about and see how a new FTech MaxLife FT3 cremator can improve your quality of life.
If you're like most funeral directors, there's one thing you need more than anything else, and that's time. Time to focus on serving families, time to plan meaningful funerals, and time for rest and renewal. Look, we know right now it's harder than ever to be a funeral director. We're here to help. With Funeral Directors Life on your side, you can get more done in a day than you ever dreamed of. Boost your cash flow with our financial services. Start reaching more families with our proven marketing strategies. Grow your pre-need business and stay on top of payroll and accounting. I mean, let's face it, you're more than a funeral director. You need more than a pre-need company. Ready to start saving time while growing your business? Request a consultation today.
Growing with a traditional pre-need program is a lot of work, and far too often ends with you paying too much for marketing that fails to convert. At Bercoa, we have a better way. We call it proactive pre-need. We'll take the work off of you by managing your entire pre-need pipeline. No, seriously, we'll do it all. Everything from generating leads to pre-planning families is on us. And the best part, our system is proven to double your sales and increase your at-need case volume. Ask for a free market analysis today to see how you can 2x your pre-need. Grow your funeral home with confidence. Bercoa, your guide to complete pre-need. In the world of pre-need insurance, where compassion meets planning, the Kilpatrick Group is a guiding light. At TKG, we understand the significance of every detail and have built systems around our goal to provide more of what matters. More lead sources driving growth, more appointments booked, connecting families, more policies sold, securing futures. With a combined 150 years of industry experience, our dedicated team knows how to meet your needs. Our commitment extends beyond the marketing and sales process, offering comprehensive hiring and training services to shape tomorrow's leaders. The Kilpatrick Group, elevating the premium insurance experience with more of what truly matters.
Bueller. Bueller.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Ladies and gentlemen, life does move pretty fast. So we thank you for taking a few days off to not miss Selected's 2023 annual meeting. And now here's our 2022-2023 president, Byron Calhoun.
Good morning. I would like to officially call to order and welcome everyone to the 2023 Selected Independent Funeral Homes Annual Meeting. We're so excited that you all were able to join us here in person and online. Now, if you would please rise as we begin our meeting with the Star Spangled Banner and O Canada, led by Ryan St. Pierre with the St. Pierre Family Funeral Home and Cremation Service.
So now let's century. Stand on
It's now our pleasure to welcome Father Daniel Brent, who is the director of the Chaplains Unit of Chicago Police Chaplains Ministry.
Feel free to be seated, friends. I'll just keep you for about an hour and a half. Father Dan Brandt, as Tony just said, I am the director of the department's chaplain unit, and welcome on behalf of the Chicago Police Department and our 1,200 or 12,000, excuse me, a little shy of 12,000 sworn members. Our office in the chaplain's ministry provides pastoral care and 24/7 crisis ministry to our officers. We get called out quite a bit for either shootings or officers injured in car wrecks. We've had 3 of those this week, squad car accidents. Just all kinds of a host of different issues. And as you can imagine these days, as police work is highly scrutinized, these folks call on us quite often for pastoral care too. So on behalf of those whom I serve, may I just ask you folks in your kindness, if you see one of our guys or gals out as you're walking around, maybe just a little something like this to say thank you. This is, of course, sign language for a simple gesture for a warm thank you for the work that they do. They put their lives on the line for us every day. So on behalf of them, welcome. Hope you are enjoying your stay in Chicago. I wonder if we could get just a little bit of light, because I'd like to get to know my audience. It's important in speaking to a crowd to know them. So if somebody could just give us a little bit of light in the room, I'd be grateful. Oh no, turn it back off. I'm sorry. I'm kidding. Leave it, please leave it on. You can raise them up again, please. So just by show of hands, if I may, who's here from the state of Illinois? People from around the state of Illinois. And of course, our state bird is the cardinal, which of course you see them on the table as you came in the room. Cardinal reminding us of death and the importance of remembering death is not just the end of life here on earth, but actually a passage into eternal life. I have a friend, a police officer friend, whose father used to feed cardinals. I don't know if it's safflower seed or sunflower seed, some kind of seed that attracts mostly just cardinals. And he would keep his bird feeder filled with these as this girl was growing up. And then she got married, moved out, and has her own house. She doesn't have the bird feeder, but the day her father died, she woke up, or the next day, I should say, she woke up the next morning, and what was on her windowsill in her bedroom but a cardinal? And what a great reminder that, yes, indeed, the work that you do, the sacred work that you do, helping families through the most awful times in their lives, is just a temporary thing. It's a moment, and it's of course passage from our life, from this life, earthly life, to eternal life. Our faith assures us of that, and that's I know that's what gets me through some of the ups and downs of life. And I pray that today you could find more ups than downs. And so thank you, Illinoisans. How many folks are here from, say, 500 or more miles away? Wow, 1,000 miles away? 1,500 miles away? About 15? Is that the furthest? All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on out. And today, as we thank God for the opportunity to be together, I also like to get to know my audience by not asking just where you're from or how far away you're at, but I want to show you that I do know you. I know it's not quite 9 o'clock yet. You're probably not ready for a math lesson, but just humor me if you would. Well, you think of a number between 2 and 9 in your head, between 2 and 9. Now take that number and multiply it by 3. All right. Now you've got a new number in your mind. Multiply that new number by 3. Mr. Calhoun, please put your shoes back on. So you've got a new number in your head. It's probably a 2-digit number, right? Will you add the first digit to the second digit, please? All right. You've got a new number in your head. Subtract 5. And go to the letter of the alphabet that corresponds with the new number that's in your head. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so on. You've got a letter in your head now. I'm almost finished. Think of a country that begins with that letter.
Any country in the world begins with that letter. Now go to the very next letter in the alphabet and think of an animal that begins with that letter. And I'll tell you this, friends, there are no elephants in Denmark. I'm in your head. I want to share with you a story since we all deal with death. Obviously, it's a very serious affair, but it's also something that we need to make light sometimes of life, because life can get way too serious. So let me tell you about this woman whose husband died. He actually had a horrible accident, and the doctor, she rushed him to the hospital, and she said, the doctor said, "Ma'am, your husband has lost a lot of blood. We need to give him a transfusion. What is your husband's blood type?" And she says, "Oh my goodness, we've been married all these years. I don't know his blood type." And he says, "Well, without the blood type, I can't give him a transfusion." The guy ends up dying. So several days go by. She is going to eulogize him. She insists on speaking at his funeral, and she gives this beautiful eulogy talking about her husband and his beautiful attributes, how he always lit up a room and he always found a glass half full, never half empty, silver lining behind every cloud. She says, "In fact, here's an example. On the day he died, I was cradling his arms and cradling his head in my arms in the emergency room. And he looked up at me. He saw the anguish in my eyes, and he said, 'Honey, be positive.'" So, okay, since you like that one, I got one more, and that's it. I promise. I was visiting one of our retirees, and his grandson was in the room, maybe 10-year-old kid, and the grandson says to this older gentleman, "Papa, can you make the sound that a frog makes?" He says, "What?" And the kid says, "Can you make the frog noise?" And the grandfather says, "Why would I do that?" And the kid says, "Because Grandma told us that we're going to Disney as soon as you croak." So get this, I go back a week later and I'm visiting, and it turns out the guy had just died. So the wife is in the room with the husband who's laying there, just passed away, and she's a mess, and she has to see her family. She has to break the news to her family, who's in the family waiting room down the hall. And she says, "I can't go down there and break the news to them. I'm a mess. You got to cheer me up somehow." I said, "How am I going to cheer you up?" She says, "I don't know. Tell me a joke." I said, "Okay." So I'm thinking, I said, "Here you go. Knock, knock." And she says, "Who's there?" I said, "Certainly not your husband." So she asked if I would go break the news down the hall. So I go in the room and I said, "Folks, there's no easy way to put this, so I'm just going to put it out there. You can start packing for Disney." So we're here to remember folks. We're here to remember our fallen colleagues, and we have lost quite a few members this past year. And those who have passed away prior to September 15th are going to be memorialized in just a few moments. But in the meantime, I wonder if we could just take a moment to recognize that we are in God's presence when we gather in a setting like this. And I know some of us call God by different names, and some of us maybe not so much at all. But if those who are willing to join me in a little prayer, a little invocation, I'd appreciate you doing so. Why don't we just place ourselves in God's presence? And Lord God, we come before you this day, and we thank you for bringing us together. We thank you for this opportunity to laugh and to maybe shed a tear or two. We thank you for this opportunity to network and to see old friends and make new friends. We thank God for this sacred work that you do, folks, and for the lives, the families that you comfort. And we pray a moment of silence for each of those people that you have helped to facilitate their transition from this life to eternal life this past year. And Lord, we ask your blessing upon those families whom this group serves, and we pray for peace in their hearts. As we pray for peace in our world, especially right now, peace in the Middle East, Lord, we pray for a restoration of peace and order. We pray also for peace between all borders, peace here in Chicago on our streets and throughout our nations. And we pray for peace in our homes and, of course, in our hearts. And we pray all this in your most sacred name, for you live and reign forever and ever. Amen. I'd like you to direct your eyes, if you would, please, to the screen behind me as we now remember our fallen comrades. We remember not only these folks, but those who will be memorialized last year. Anyone who passed away after September 15th will be on our memorial next year as well, but God bless them too with their eternal reward. Eternal rest grant unto all of them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May they rest in peace, and may their souls and the souls of all the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. Amen. Finally, I have a couple of prizes to give out for not only the person who came the furthest away. These are little Chicago police notepads. You'll see them. The officers love these things. They fit perfectly in their vest pocket. So you're going home with a little Chicago police notepad. Anyone else anyone who can tell me this? Today, this day in history, the television show that we all know, Saturday Night Live, debuted on this day, October 11th. Can anyone know the year? I heard it right back here. Honor system. All right, I will give you a notepad on my way out. And finally, also on this day in history, a certain song was released, and that song was one of the most influential songs in the 20th century. It embodied radical utopianism and optimistic humanism, and prayed for an end to the Vietnam conflict. That is the song. Anyone? John Lennon. Imagine. Yes. Honor system. When I'm walking out, I want you to grab me so I can give you a notepad. What year was that? Anybody? 19. I'll give you a hint. Bob Smith. It was a year between 1970 and 1972. You are on. Folks, have a wonderful conference. Thank you again, and God bless you for the God ordained and the sacred work that you do. May Almighty God bless you, protect you from all evil, and bring you one day to everlasting life. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Don't run off just yet. We truly appreciate you taking the time out this morning from your busy schedule to come and, be with us and for your inspiring words. We also, want to thank you for the outstanding work that you do with the Chicago Policemen's Charitable Association. And to that end, selected independent funeral directors would like to make a $250 donation, as well as Robert Justin from Justin Funeral Home and Cremation Service in McHenry, Illinois, has chosen to match that. So thank you so very much. Everyone's trying to get those patrolman books. As we continue with our opening session, I would like to introduce my fellow board of directors and their spouses who are here with us in Chicago. First, we have Mr. Al Asta and his wife, Christy, from Phoenix, Arizona, representing Group 6. Would you please stand as your name is called? John Kepner and his wife, Claudia, Huntersville, North Carolina, representing Group 3. Tom Antrim and his wife, Carrie, Albuquerque, New Mexico, representing Group 5. John Kahane from Quincy, Massachusetts, representing Group 1. Barbara Risher Welch and her husband, Greg, from Montebello, California, representing Group 6. Christopher Waite, Medina, Ohio, representing Group 2. We also want to welcome our incoming board members who will be installed at our membership business session on Thursday. We have Mr. Sheridan Lee and his wife, Allison, from Garner, North Carolina, representing Group 3. We have Dave Moore and his wife, Jamie, from Mason City, Iowa, representing Group 4. We have Mr. Eric Trimble and his wife Barbara from Moline, Illinois. Thank you. If we can give the entire board a round of applause. Thank you so very much. Now we would like to turn our attention to our preferred partners. But first, I would like to thank our sponsors from last night. I think we all had a fantastic time at the welcome reception. I know I had a great time, so hopefully you did as well. We also want to thank and give special welcome to all our representatives from our preferred partners who are helped joining us this week. Please see the screen and your meeting program for a complete list. We ask any representatives from these companies who are in the room to please stand so we can see, so we can see you. Thank you so much. Make sure you stop by the booths in the ballroom and interact with them and thank them for their support as we enjoy this board meeting, not board meeting, but association meeting, excuse me. As we are well aware, membership in Selected is very special and we appreciate the tenure of our members. During the association update session on Friday, we will get a chance to honor several firms that are celebrating 50-year milestones, membership anniversaries with us this year. This morning, we are equally proud to welcome new firms that have joined us since we met last year. Take a look at the screen for a list of all new member firms. This list can also be found on your official program where we celebrate and recognize them with all the milestone members. We would like representatives from our new member firms who are here with us this morning. Please stand and be recognized. We look forward to getting to know you better and extend a heartfelt welcome to Selected Independent Funeral Homes. It is now my pleasure to introduce the 2022-2023 Board Chair, Mr. Al Asta. Al began his funeral service career with Whitney and Murphy Funeral Home in the early 1980s. And in 1984, he was involved in a Forethought Life Insurance pilot program as a sales agent. In this role, he developed sales materials, phone scripts, training materials, and product development. About a year after that program began, Al was named manager of Whitney and Murphy. In addition, Al has served as general manager of Prime Succession Incorporated, Phoenix, Arizona operations, which soon grew to include the company's operations in Texas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Arkansas. In 2000, Al was promoted to regional vice president with the diverse and varied corporate responsibilities. Today, Al is owner of Whitney and Murphy with his two sons also working in the business. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our board chair, Mr. Al Asta.
How do you follow Father Dan? Wow. Good morning. Morning. Hey, welcome everyone to the 2023 Selected Independent Funeral Homes 105th annual meeting. Right? Pretty cool. Thank you for taking the time to join us here in person, as well as those of you that are joining us virtually. It was great to see everyone last night at the trust reception, at the welcome reception. It was a great way to kick off the week. It was great to see a lot of old friends. It really was. I think the night was incredible. If just for the record, I think it was as good a one as we've had. So I was reflecting a little bit over the past few weeks about the theme of the meeting, connecting leaders. And I said, you know, there's no statement to define what we are doing here more than that anywhere. I mean, this one event is the ultimate connecting leaders for me. There's no statement to define what we're doing in my mind. From the best and the brightest in funeral service to the preferred partners to the Selected HQ team, we are truly connecting leaders all in one place with all the resources we could possibly ask to grow our businesses and better serve our families. This one annual event pretty much defines Selected for me. I'd like to take a few minutes, if I may, to reflect and share a little bit about what Selected has meant to me and to our funeral home business. We've got a nice little business in Phoenix and have had, founded in 1903, which is old for that area. Okay. We're doing just fine. And somewhere around 2008, we were finally able to join Selected. At that time, we were serving about 480 families annually. I attended my first annual meeting that same year. Frankly, I was blown away by the high level people there and their openness and willingness to share. The information exchange was meaningful. That meeting was somehow different than any other meeting I had ever been to. And I knew right then that I needed to pay attention to and get deeply involved with this group. The more that I participated and engaged in, I felt the more I'd get back out of it, and in spades. I was eager to engage in things that would both help me personally and to help our business to grow. One of the things that I did early on, was advised to do early on, frankly, and took that advice, was to get into a Selected study group. What a good idea that was. We've grown to be an intimate, tight group that always is available to each other. I like to call them my silent board of directors. We've all learned, shared, and grown together and have helped each other to make crucial decisions in all of our businesses. I know that being able to share, consult, and seek their counsel has had a huge impact on the decisions I've made along the way. And I want to say thank you to all of my study group C members. Appreciate you more than you know. If you've not done so, I would encourage you to talk to Dan or Denise and get involved with a Selected study group. Another thing that helped me along the way in my journey in Selected is the access that we have to our preferred partners. Selected has vetted and aligned us with the best suppliers in funeral service. We don't have to do a ton of research. It's already done for us. And it is a hard vetting process. Once you get on this board and you see what goes on to get, it's not easy to, as much as you might think it is, it's not easy for that to happen. So, you know, from marketing to pre-need to merchandise to supplies to insurance to aftercare, it's all there. So all the things that are happening out in funeral service that we've got to implement at our own locations, Selected takes the time to get the best in the business in front of us and help us to then make a decision what makes sense for us. The process is just incredible. They have given us such a huge competitive advantage in our market. Most of these vendors are here with us this week, ready and willing to help. And again, I highly advise you to take the time to spend with them and get to know them a little bit. There's something in that room that's going to help make your business better. I want to talk about the forum for about just a second. Has anybody ever seen anything like it in any other venue or avenue that you participate in? Because I sure never have. I want to thank all of you for sharing your experiences with me and all the members when you're called upon with questions, issues, and problems. Your shared resources are invaluable. The trust and credibility of the information can't be found at this level in any other organization. And I believe that's a huge advantage to us as Selected members, that we can just tap into that resource and have that information at the drop of a hat. I've used it a ton. I may not share too much on record, but I do participate in the backside, send a lot of private messages, but use that to your advantage. It's made a huge difference in our company. I want to take a minute to talk about Selected transfer services. Seems simple, just seems to make sense. But, you know, the trust and comfort that we can all have when we can call upon a Selected firm to care for a family when they're out of our area, invaluable. There's no thought that has to go into who should I call. It makes us look better when we get a case or have a family go that way. And I'm sure, invertedly speaking, it goes the other way. I want to say thank you to those of you, especially the Trimbles. They send us like a case a month, I think. But, you know, it matters. It changes our business, the dynamic of the confidence that you have in us. So I want to say thank you for that as well. I want to take a moment to thank the Selected HQ team. I can say firsthand that they're extremely, and I mean extremely knowledgeable about funeral service and our business needs, and are driven to give support to us each and every day. Rob, Denise, and the team work hard to ensure we have the resources at hand for us all to be successful.
They're completely aligned with our goals, and I dare say that they've fallen in love with funeral service. In fact, I know they have. You can't find a more dedicated, hardworking staff than we have that is here to support you in all of its members. So thank you to the HQ team. Sarah has gotten us out of more pickles than I can imagine. And I wanted to take a minute to say thank you to her as well. She's incredible, her wealth of knowledge that she has. She's always available to us. I think as members, sometimes we forget that resource is there. I strongly encourage you to just find that phone number if you ever need it, because she's there and she's responsive and she's spot on. So Sarah, wherever you may be, thank you. And then the other thing I want to talk about briefly is our business can't evolve if we don't have quality staff and future leadership. In our firm, we're blessed to have both. With that, I'd ask you, what are you doing to grow and empower your future leaders? Personally, I'm taking advantage. One of the things is we're taking advantage of the Leadership Academy. So I have two sons who've decided to come into the business with us. Both of them are currently in the Leadership Academy. My oldest son, Anthony, graduates this year, and Matt has 1 year to go. And we're grateful that he could join us again this year at the annual. So if you get a chance, say hi to Matt. Say hi to Matt. I think the growth, confidence, and knowledge that they're getting is invaluable, not just to them, but to our firm as well. And the peer relationships that they are garnering with other Academy class members will certainly last a lifetime. Marguerite, if you're in the room, I want to say thank you for all you do for everybody in that Leadership Academy as well. These are just a few things that, kind of helped us along the way that Selected has, and I've taken advantage of. And as I said early on, you dive in and you get out of it what you put in it. And I felt compelled, and I really feel good about where it's been able to kind of take our firm. So I'm going to fast forward just a little bit to 2023 and give you a quick update on where the company is today. So with the help of all things Selected, we have the confidence, courage, and resources to grow our business from that 480 call firm doing just fine in 2008. We've expanded our business currently to now serving over 1,400 families in 2023. So we don't grow to that without the resources, the people, the encouragement, and the resources and so on to make this thing happen. So part of that journey is Selected as a huge part of it for me. I'm grateful that we took the leap to become a Selected member, and I hope to God everybody in this room is as well. Along the journey, I knew that I wanted to do a little bit more and give back to Selected. I first gladly accepted an invitation to join the Board of Trustees for the Selected Trust. Being a part of granting scholarships, watching the Institute come to fruition, and sharing in the value of education, I'm thankful for that experience. We all shared in it last night. It's dynamic. It's incredible. You guys support it like crazy. If you ever get an opportunity and there's something you want to do to give back, ask to get on that trust board. I highly encourage that as well. The ultimate honor for me was being chosen to be a leader of the association to serve on the board of directors of Selected. This has truly been a rewarding experience. I want to thank you for your support these past few years, and especially over this past year while serving as your board chair. With that, I'd like to pivot briefly for a minute and just touch on a few things that the board has kind of been up to and focused on as of late. Little update, if you will. In short, the board is just now working on completing a strategic plan. We've been prepping for it for quite a while, or in the latter stages of having that important roadmap completed. It gives the board clear direction and measurable actions as we go into the next couple of years. It is a sound business practice that we've been looking forward to completing and implementing. You all know about the dynamics of how succession is trending, and that the fact that we've lost some great firms because of it. We've been working hard to encourage new membership from firms that not only will benefit them, but them too Selected. At last year's meeting, we had a quick conversation and asked everybody if you could just recommend one firm. Many of you did. I would like to say that the support that you've given us, we've been able to add many nice firms and many new talented people into Selected. And a lot of you are here today for the first time. And I want to say welcome to you. And thank you for taking that leap into Selected as I did in 2008. So please take the time to absorb everything that you can, meet a lot of people, and start to build your own lifelong relationships of your own. You all received a survey recently. I trust that you filled it in. Okay, good. One of the key issues facing the association is talking and defining what constitutes it, what an actual independent funeral home is. With the different types of ownership structures in today's world, it's become a real quandary for the board when determining, what that really means as we go forward. Just not to traditional family to family to family anymore. So tomorrow we're hosting a town hall meeting. We'll be there to listen and garner your viewpoints and gather your thoughts and opinions on this and other very important matters. I strongly encourage you to please take the time to attend this important session tomorrow, and please bring your thoughts. The board is here to listen. Well, that's about enough rambling from me, I guess. In closing, I'd like to say this to you. Remember that we are stronger together. Selected truly does have the best and brightest in funeral service. From our members to the HQ staff to the preferred providers, no other group can connect leaders like Selected can. I encourage you to use these resources to help your business prosper and grow in the coming years as mine has. And again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this amazing opportunity to represent you and serve as your board chair. It has truly, truly been my honor. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to properly introduce our president, Mr. Byron Calhoun, to deliver the president's address. Byron is the president of Calhoun Funeral Homes and Cremation Services. He's been a licensed funeral director and embalmer and life insurance agent for more than 30 years. Before moving to Cleveland, Ohio, Byron worked with his father, the late William Calhoun, as a funeral director with Stewart and Calhoun Funeral Home in Akron, Ohio. Byron has received numerous awards for his community involvement. His dedication to community involvement can be evidenced by his volunteer service on many charitable boards, including the Akron Urban League, Child Guidance and Family Solutions, and the Kappa Foundation. He's a proud member of the House of the Lord Church, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, and the Morehouse College National Alumni Association. Please join me in welcoming back to the stage our president, Mr. Byron Calhoun.
A few months back, I was asked to speak at a graduation. In the morning of the graduation, I began going over in my head while I was shaving what I would say. I inadvertently cut my face and it required a pretty sizable bandage. So once at the graduation on stage, I felt compelled to explain to the audience exactly what happened. At the conclusion of my words, a young man comes up to me and he says, "Mr. Calhoun, I truly appreciate the pearls of wisdom that you shared with us this afternoon. Now, if I may, I would like to share one with you." I said, "Certainly, young man." He said, "Next time, cut your speech and not your face." So I say that to say this, I will follow the words of Elizabeth Taylor, which she is rumored to have said to her fifth husband, "I won't keep you long." Ladies and gentlemen, you are the distinguished members of Selected Independent Funeral Homes. You have distinguished yourselves because you are selected. Because you are selected, you represent the very best and brightest in independent funeral service. You are our brain trust. And I am most honored to stand before you today and address you during this annual meeting of what I call remarkable individuals. And today I would like to briefly share what I believe is not only crucial to your individual businesses, but also central to the essence of our collective as an association. And that is the immense value derived from relationships and the wealth of experiences shared within the Selected community. Our association represents a network of like-minded professionals who are dedicated to serving grieving families with the utmost compassion, dignity, and professionalism. Each of you, as members, embodies the core principles of our profession. But beyond the logo and the association, the true strength of our collective lies in the relationships we forge and the experiences we share. I would like to highlight a few areas that demonstrate the value of these assets. First and foremost, camaraderie and peer support. The bonds we form with fellow members are invaluable. In this emotionally taxing profession, having a community of peers who understand the unique challenges we face is an immense source of support. The advice, shared experiences, and friendships you receive from fellow selected members are an invaluable asset. Secondly, knowledge sharing and continuous learning. Our association offers a platform for sharing knowledge and staying up to date with industry best practices. The roundtables, annual meetings, learning events, and webinars, they're not just about certificates and continuing education credits, but they are about enriching your expertise through the collective wisdom of your peers. Enhancing professionalism. By being a part of this esteemed group, you showcase your commitment to professionalism and our ethical code of good practice. This association adds significant value to your brand, assuring families that they are entrusting their loved ones to a funeral home that upholds the highest standards. Mutual growth. As the saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. By actively participating in this association, you contribute to the growth and development of the entire funeral industry. Your insights and experiences can help shape the future of this profession. Collaboration and innovation. Through this network, you have the opportunity to collaborate on projects, share innovative ideas, and explore new ways to better serve families. The power of collective innovation is a driving source behind our association's success. Guidance and mentorship. Many of our members have decades of experience in this field. For our new members and first-generation community, Selected offers mentorship and guidance, ensuring the transfer of knowledge and wisdom to the next generation of funeral service professionals. This is accomplished through vehicles such as the Forum, Selected Study Groups, and our Leadership Academy. And finally, community engagement, Selected's involvement in community events, charitable initiatives, and educational programs through our educational trust not only strengthens our collective image, but also underscores our commitment to the communities that we serve. In conclusion, it is abundantly clear that Selected Independent Funeral Homes is not just an affiliation. It is a vibrant community that enriches the lives and businesses of its members. The value you receive from relationships cultivated and the experiences shared within this group extends beyond the boundaries of any individual funeral home. As members of this remarkable association, you are part of a legacy that goes beyond any single logo or tagline. You are part of a community of professionals who share a common mission to provide solace, support, and dignity to grieving families during their most challenging moments. The value you derive from relationships and shared experiences garnered here are immeasurable and fortify not only your individual brands, but also the very foundation of our profession. Thank you for your dedication to the principles and values of Selected Independent Funeral Homes. May your ongoing relationships, shared experiences within this community continue to elevate the standard of excellence of your individual firms and our industry and bring comfort to the countless families we serve. Thank you. You have to bear with me now. This script, I don't have my glasses and the lights are dim. As our opening session continues, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Andrew Tarvin is an international project manager turned humor engineer. Through his company, Humor That Works, Andrew teaches people how to be more productive, less stressed, and happier using humor. He has worked with thousands of people at hundreds of organizations, including Microsoft, the FBI, and the International Association of Canine Professionals. He is a best-selling author, has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and Fast Company, and has delivered talks in 50 states, 23 countries, and yes, one planet, Earth. He loves the color orange and is obsessed with milkshakes. Please join me in welcoming Andrew Tarvin.
Thank you, Byron, so much for the warm introduction. And what an incredible start to the morning already, right? Wonderful words from Al as well, and from Father Dan, sharing and balancing that humor with also an incredible message. And how great was Ryan, my younger doppelganger, up here? Right, we both look a little same. We're talking to the tech group in the back, and they turned around and they're like, "Okay, so when you're singing, do you want?" It's like, whoa, we do not want me singing. No, that is him. Ryan was fantastic. I am incredibly honored and excited to be chatting with you here this morning about a subject that I'm incredibly passionate about. And I'll give you a little bit of background about me just so you understand where that passion comes from. And the most important thing to know about me is that I am a nerd. Yeah, I know. And if you're wondering what type of nerd, the answer is yes. Computer, math, sci-fi, Dungeons and Dragons, Star Wars, Star Trek, Starbucks, all of them. Most specifically, I'm an engineer. You know, as a kid, I used to take things apart and put them back together again. Things like clocks and radios, and my romantic relationships didn't always work. As an engineer, I've always been obsessed with efficiency ever since I can remember, or really since before I can remember, because I was born 3 weeks early. So apparently, even in the womb, I was like, I don't need a full 9 months. I'm ready to go right now. You know, I remember in school thinking that smart for me was getting a 93% in all of my classes, because a 93% was the lowest score you could get and still get a top grade of an A. So it got to the point that if I got like a 94, 95, or worst case scenario, 100%, I was upset because it meant that I did more work than I had to do. Right? Obsessed with efficiency. So I went on to get a degree in computer science and engineering from The Ohio State University. And I do have to say the part, otherwise they take away my degree. Went to The Ohio State University. And after I graduated, I started working at Procter & Gamble as an IT project manager. And for the first year or so at P&G, this obsession with efficiency really helped me out in terms of processes and work and taking on projects, etc. Although about a year into my role at P&G, I remember being in this meeting that was, the most polite way to say is just incredibly boring, right? Have you ever been in one of those meetings that is like so dry, it makes you want to cry? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like one of those meetings where you start daydreaming about things you wish you could be doing instead of being in that meeting, right? Where you're like, it's not even necessarily even exciting things. You're like, you know what? I'd rather be folding laundry right now. You know, or you know, maybe I should schedule a root canal just so I feel something again. Right? Ever been in a meeting like that? And the problem with this particular meeting was that I was the one leading the meeting. And I had this realization where it's like, wait, if I'm bored while talking, the audience has to be bored while listening. And I had a little bit of this existential crisis. And so I went to my manager and talked to him about it. I was like, I'm stressed out about all the work that I have to do, but bored in these meetings. And what do I do? And it was at that moment he gave me advice that changed my life. We're going to talk about that piece of advice in just a moment. But I want you to start thinking about for yourself any pieces of advice that you've maybe heard in your career, in your life, that maybe have changed the trajectory of your life. Start to think about that, because we're going to frame our conversation today around this concept of leadership. Specifically, how do we lead through change? How in an environment that is constantly changing, that we need to adapt to, how can we motivate, inspire, and lead other people? That's what we're going to talk about. Now, I know as a former project manager that every meeting should start with an agenda and end on next steps. However, in the spirit of leading through change and uncertainty, I'm not going to tell you what it is. Okay? You're just going to have to trust that what we're going to talk about is going to get you a little bit closer to that idea of leadership. And I do want you to understand, I'm very, very clear and honest that I do not work in funeral service. I've had only limited interaction with funeral service. When my dad passed away 10 years ago, when my grandparents passed away 20 years ago, I do know from conversations with some of you this morning and last night at the kind of get together, the welcome reception, you're incredibly compassionate, passionate people, have tremendous respect and appreciation for what you do because of the service you provide for people at some of the most difficult part of their time. And you do it with a lot of love and a lot of humor and a lot of grace. So I incredibly appreciate that. So my goal today is not to teach you how to be better in terms of funeral service specifically. The goal is to give you a couple of tips, techniques, things that have worked at organizations like Microsoft, the FBI, the United Nations, all these other groups that we've worked with, the human component of what we're talking about today. That's what I want to talk about. How do we lead through this change? Because we live now in a VUCA world, right? You've heard that maybe before, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. And it leads to the fact that there's probably a lot of things on your mind. There's a lot of things that you're thinking about. Maybe it's specific projects that you're working on, staffing challenges, industry changes. Maybe it's a bigger picture of these ideas or concepts that are happening, right? Maybe it's political divisiveness or economic disparity, or maybe you're like me and you're super bummed that they have discontinued the Choco Taco. Anyone else bummed kind of about that? If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Choco Taco is the height of American culinary excellence. Right? We took ice cream and put it in the form of a taco, and they discontinued it. This was a staple of my childhood. But whatever it is that happens to be on your mind, whatever changes you are going through, we have to understand, how do we actually lead through that change? How can we be effective leaders? So if we're going to talk about leadership, we need to start to frame how we want to talk about it, right? What do we actually mean by it? So I want you to revisit that question that I asked right at the very beginning. What is the most impactful piece of advice that you've heard? Because for me, the advice that changed my life was, it's better to beg for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Yeah. Kind of disappointing, isn't it? A little bit of a letdown of a piece of advice. You're like waiting for this worldly wisdom, something that's going to blow your mind. And you're like, really? I've heard that before. But it wasn't the piece of advice that changed my life. It was the action that came afterwards. Because as someone fresh out of university, when my manager told me it's better to beg for forgiveness than it is for ask for permission, I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, I wonder if he actually means that. So I decided to test him. And at the time, I was starting to do improv and stand-up comedy. And so I was like, you know, what if I'm going to test him? What if I add a joke to the bottom of my email, right? Would I get in trouble for that? So I tried that, and no real ruffles, feathers or anything like that. And then I was like, okay, what if I teach improv to some of my team members to make the meetings a little bit less boring? And that went well. And the thing that I did that I thought for sure I was going to have to beg for forgiveness for was, I proclaimed myself the corporate humorist of P&G. Started an internal blog. I got business cards made, right? And I assumed someone would stop me, right? I assumed my manager or someone from HR or legal would be like, you can't just create your own job title. But no one ever did. Instead, people started to refer to me as the corporate humorist. They'd meet me like, Andrew Tart, wait, you're that corporate humor guy. And that led me to exploring this intersection of humor in the workplace, improv in business, happiness and productivity. So I started doing more work internally at P&G, and that led me to starting my company and ultimately leaving P&G. And now a decade later, working with thousands of organizations all around the world on how to use humor and improv and other concepts to be a little bit more effective at what they do. It wasn't just a piece of advice, it was the action that came after. And at no point did my manager stop it. Right? He not only gave me the advice, but he actually took action as well. And when we're talking about leadership, you have to understand that leadership isn't a position. It's not a title. It's not something that's written on your business card. It's an attitude. And specifically, it's an attitude in action. And that action piece is really, really important, because there is a big difference between intention and action. Right? You all know that, right? Big difference between intention and action. Because quick show of hands, how many of you speak more than one language? Anyone here speak more? A couple of you, hands in the back. I do not. I am like most stereotypical Americans that I only speak English, right? Although I recently went to the UK and realized that I don't even speak English, right? I speak American, right? But I will admit I am trying to learn how to speak German, because my wife is German. She's the first German person I've ever dated. It's the most efficient relationship I have ever been in. It is wonderful. We met in 2018. We moved in together in 2019. We got engaged and married in 2020. We had a baby in 2021. right? And this is how I know that we're going to stay together forever, because if we're going to get divorced, it would have happened in 2022. Right? We are efficient. And so I'm trying to learn German to be a little bit better in touch with my wife. And I'm doing everything that I can to try to learn German. You know, I'm on Duolingo every single day. We watch German films on Netflix. I'm eating a whole bunch of sauerkraut, like everything that I can think of. And a couple of years ago, we were in Germany and doing a little tour to a couple of different countries. And I told my wife, I was like, you know what? You know, to try to practice this skill, to show you how much I'm trying this language, it's difficult, to show you how much I love you, I'm going to try to have a conversation with someone in German while I'm here. Ideally, I'm going to do it with a stranger too, so that they're not nice to me. I'm going to have a conversation in German with a stranger. And so I keep putting it off though, because it's a little bit nerve wracking. I'm a little bit nervous about it. We're getting ready to leave Germany. My wife is like, you know, hey, this is something you said you were going to do. Did you want to try to do it? So I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. We're headed to Switzerland next. And I was like, okay, when we get to the hotel in Switzerland, I'll just have a conversation with the receptionist in German, right? Because I figure, first of all, receptionists, they're paid to be nice to you, right? So even if I'm awkward or whatever, it's not going to be too weird. And second of all, it's pretty a transactional conversation. Like I'm probably not going to have to talk about my hopes and dreams with this person. Although just to check, I turned to my wife and I was like, okay, how do I say hopes and dreams in German? And she was like, you wouldn't. Okay, this is why I like German. This is great. Fantastic. So I'm already feeling a little bit more confident, and I'm thinking about what I might say. I figure I'll get to the hotel and I'll probably walk in. I'll probably say something like Guten Tag, right? That means good day. So then they'll probably say Guten Tag back, and then I have this epiphany. I realize at this point I can just say Sprechen Sie English, which means do you speak English? Because I realized I never said to my wife how long the conversation would be in German, right? So if I say Sprechen Sie English, they'll say yes. I can say Dankeschön, thank you very much, continue the conversation in English, and have proved to my wife I at least tried to have this conversation in German with a stranger. So I'm practicing in the car what I'm going to say, and I want to get the pronunciation right, because it's Sprechen Sie English, not English. Sprechen Sie English. Feeling pretty good. Get to the hotel, walk in. Right as I'm getting ready to say Guten Tag, the receptionist says, Bonjour. And my brain shut down. And in the process of my brain shutting down, the only thing that I could think to say was, no hablo inglés. Which is wrong. It is wrong for multiple reasons. Right? She said something in French. I responded in Spanish. And in Spanish, I said, I don't speak English. I hablo inglés. I only hablo inglés. And the woman was very kind, though. She was like, do you want to speak English? And I was like, sí, grazie, prego. Wrong. The point is that I did not intend to make myself look like a fool in front of my wife with that conversation. But my kind of true lack of preparation in that particular moment led to a very different action, right? Because there's a difference between our intention and our action. And here's the interesting thing about intention and action. What do we judge other people by? Their intentions or their actions? Their actions, right? It's the only thing that we can see. What do we judge ourselves by? Our intentions. Have you ever felt good about yourself just because of something that you thought? Don't you know what I mean? Like I love sweets, right? That's why I love milkshakes, because they're the most efficient form of dessert, right? The deliciousness of ice cream, all you have to do is suck. They're amazing, right? I love milkshakes. They're amazing, right? So I love sweets, and I go to a lot of conferences, and so a lot of times I'll go past a cookie table and I'll eat cookies, etc. I love them. Recently went to my doctor. We did blood work. He's like, you've got a pretty high sugar count. He's like, if you eat too much more sugar, your blood is basically going to be Kool-Aid. And this one, very high sugar. He's like, you got to cut down on the sugar a little bit. And so I went to, after that doctor's appointment, went to the doctor, went to a conference, and walked by a cookie table, right? Dessert table or snack during a break. And I stopped and I was like, you know what? I don't need a cookie, right? I don't need one. I just had lunch not too long ago. It's the middle of the day. I don't need a cookie at all. Then I started to think to myself, like, wow, that's really disciplined of you. That's really smart. You know, you deserve a reward. A cookie, right? But I felt good about myself just for having even thought the idea, right? Sometimes we do that with intention versus action, but there's a big gap between our intention and our action. And in that gap, especially as us as leaders, it leads to what I call unleadership. The things that we do that demotivate the people around us that we don't even necessarily realize that we're doing. Because I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning with the intention that's like, you know what? I want to lead a boring meeting today. I want to send like 1,000 unnecessary emails. And oh, I know, I'm going to burn popcorn in our break room. Right? Like no one wakes up with that intention, but it happens. It's similar to leadership, to driving. Anyone here think of themselves as a bad driver? Anyone a bad driver? Like very few people admit that. In fact, in one study, they found that 83% of Americans believe they are an above average driver. Mathematically not possible, right? And yet most people think they're a bad driver, and yet things like this happen. Yep, it was a bad parking job or this, right? Particularly going on the road to success. There are no shortcuts, ironic. My personal favorite, right? The entire story told in picture, like fire trucks go in, footprints come out, right? All this stuff happens. Because if you ever had this experience, you get in your car at work or at the grocery store or something like that, and then suddenly you're like at home, right? You're like, how did I even get here? You don't even remember the process of having driven home. Has that ever happened to you? Kind of like getting home on autopilot? The question is that happening in your leadership? Are you ever putting your leadership on autopilot because of all of things that are happening or the things that are going on? That's what leads to this unleadership, is when our intentions and our actions are no longer meeting. And it can have a big impact. In one study from McKinsey, they found that 86% of managers felt they were inspiring. Only 18% of their employees agreed. It's a big gap, right? A gap in terms of how we think. And that has an impact on an organization. Typically, manager impact is the number one factor in employee engagement, number two factor in employee satisfaction. Depending on which poll or study you look at, it's either the number one or number two reason that people quit. So if retention is a challenge that you all are facing, it's like people may enjoy the industry, they may enjoy the work, but if they don't enjoy the people who they're interacting with every single day more directly, which might be you or someone else, they may not be engaged fully in their work. So how do you stop it? How do you stop unleadership from happening, particularly in a time of change? Well, if the gap comes from a difference between our intention and our action, then we need to have a bias towards action. We need to ultimately find, how do we lead on our feet? How can we constantly be trying to find ways to move forward, to make adjustments, to change? How do we, in short, improvise? And sometimes people are a little bit scared by the word improv. How many people love the idea of improv concept? Anyone terrified by me just mentioning the word? Some people, because I will admit, like when people hear the word improv, they're like, oh, I could never do improv. And I am one of those people, or at least used to be one of those people, because I did not start doing improv and stand-up comedy because I thought, you know who's funny? Me. You know who should listen to me? Strangers. Right? No, I only started doing improv and stand-up at university because my best friend wanted to start an improv comedy group. He needed people and forced me to join. And I didn't realize until years later, he didn't want me to join because he thought maybe I was secretly really funny. He wanted me to join because I was organized. Right? He knew, like, if I joined the group, we'd have business meetings and we'd film our shows and go back and watch his game tape, etc. But over practice and repetition, I got a little bit better. And I started to understand that some of the same principles of improvisation apply to the same principles of effective leadership. And it starts with a very simple, very basic premise that I want to share with you today. First, understanding that improv is more than just this idea of winging it. Because that's what we think of a lot of times when we think of improv. It's like winging it or lack of preparation, etc. No, improv is solely about bringing your full experience, your full expertise to the current moment, to the current situation, and adapting. And it comes from a fundamental mindset called yes and. How many of people here have heard of yes and before? Some of you? Okay, a handful of you. We are going to practice that as a skill. So what I want you to do is I want you to turn to the person next to you. And in your pair, quickly determine who woke up earlier this morning. All right. Turn to the person next to you, determine who woke up earlier this morning. That person raised their hand. Okay. All right. So again, excellent. So what's going to happen is the person who woke up earlier this morning is going to start. And what they're going to do is they are going to share an idea for a future selected annual meeting. Okay, they're going to share an idea for a future selected annual meeting. We're going to say, okay, we're going to get together next year, right? Where is it taking place next year? Have we announced that? Disney in Orlando. Okay, so we're going to say, okay, next year in Orlando, whoever woke up earlier this morning, they're going to share some type of idea for something to do in Orlando, right? There's usually some type of like welcome or some type of gathering or something like that. So you're going to plan some type of idea. All right, so that person might say something like, next year in Orlando, we should all go to an Orlando Magic basketball game, right? Maybe you're really big into basketball. The other person in your pair is going to respond to that idea, but the response is going to start yes, but. So you're going to say something like, yes, but we may not have a bunch of basketball fans in the audience or in the organization. You're then going to go back and forth, each new line kind of starting yes, but. So you might say, yes, but it's not really about basketball itself. It's just kind of a fun excuse for us to all get together. Like, yes, but we could do that if we're in Orlando. Why wouldn't we go to Disney World? It's like, yes, but my kids aren't going to be there. And so I can't go to Disney without my kids. Yeah, but whatever it is, back and forth, each line starting yes, but. Does that make sense? For those of us joining virtually, you can do this kind of in your own head with your own kind of concepts, ideas. It does actually work as well. Okay. All right. So give me 60 seconds. You're going to go back and forth. Keep going until I tell you to stop. You're sharing one person, the person who woke up earlier this morning is sharing an idea. Then you're going back and forth saying yes, but. Make sense? Cool. Go ahead and begin. All right, excellent. We'll stop right there. We'll stop right there. All right, any good ideas? Anything, quick show of hands if you're like, oh, we got a great idea, we should share this with the team. Okay. All right, so what's going to happen is you're going to now repeat that exercise. You're going to do the exact same thing. In fact, the same person is going to start. They can share the exact same idea if they would like, or they can change it if they prefer. This time, though, the other person is going to respond, instead of responding yes, but, they're going to respond yes, and, right? We're changing one word, but to and. So in that initial example, if you say something like, oh, I think we should all go to an Orlando Magic game together, and say yes, and for the people that don't really care too much about basketball, we can at least explain some of the rules and who the other team is that they're going to play. Like, yes, and after the basketball game, we can make sure that we go and have like drinks somewhere around Disney for the people that didn't really enjoy it, right? Yes, and after the drinks, we can kind of do this together. Yes, and we'll have the celebration, whatever it is, back and forth, each line starting yes, and. Make sense? So same exercise is changing one word, but to and. Cool. Go ahead and begin. All right, excellent. We'll stop right there. We'll stop right there. Excellent. So, how was the exercise? Easy, hard, fun, dumb, kind of better? That one was a little bit better. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the differences between those two. First of all, quick show of hands. How many of you thought yes and was easier? How many people thought yes and was easier? Okay. How many people thought yes but was easier? Okay, a few people know right or wrong, right? Doesn't matter. We'll come to this side of the room first. I want to understand what differences did you notice between yes and yes but? Anyone willing to share? Someone from over here? Yeah, we'll pass the mic just so that people online can hear you. What differences did you notice?
Seemed like yes and was more of an idea generator.
Yeah, so yes and was generating more ideas, right? Continue to grow, got a little bit bigger, whereas yes but was one idea maybe, and it was going back and forth a little bit about that specific idea, right? Yeah, more over here.
There was almost the tension with yes, but you could kind of feel it between us, like we were definitely going against everything.
Yeah, there's more tension with yes but a little bit, kind of almost butting heads a little bit, whereas like yes and was like, here's our idea together, where yes and was our idea together, whereas yes but was more of like, here's my idea and then here's what's wrong with your idea. Right, so it's a little bit more conflicting. Any other thoughts from the middle, differences you notice between yes but and yes and? Anyone willing to share here in the middle? No, or on this side? Other thoughts? How about the experience and or the ideas themselves? Anything come to mind? Yeah, we got here, back.
I was just going to say, it felt like yes, but tend to bring up more of a negative response, and yes and tended to bring up more of a positive, uplifting response.
Yeah, right. Yes and was a little bit more positive. After yes and, you want to like high five the other person, right? After yes but, you want to high five the other person, but in the face with a chair. It feels much more conflicting. What do you think we do more of day to day? Yes and or yes but? Yes but. Why? Right? If we do it a lot, then there's probably a reason for it. We probably do it well because it's a little bit faster, right? A little bit easier. You as an experienced kind of funeral professionally, there's a lot of things that you know wouldn't work out, right? The more experienced you become, the more likely you are to go to yes, but, because it's efficient, because you've seen and heard a lot. But imagine a scenario, you have someone new working for you. They come in and they're a millennial. We have some fellow millennials in the room? I'm an elder millennial. Quick show of hands, some millennials. Yeah, a couple of us. Yeah. I do expect a participation trophy after this. Kidding. Do we have any Gen Z people in the room? Any Gen Z? Right. Imagine you have a new person working for you. They come to you, they're Gen Z, or millennial, whatever they happen to be. They come to you and they're like, I have this brilliant idea. Right? And you're like, yes, but we tried that a couple of years ago. It didn't actually work out. And then they go away. And they come back and like, oh, I have this idea. And you're like, yes, but we just don't have the time to do something like that right now. And they go away and come back and they're like, yeah, I have this. What about, do we do this? And you're like, yes, but we just don't have any budget for something kind of like that. What happens to that person? They're defeated. They stop coming with ideas. They become disengaged. They start looking possibly for other work. And to be fair, these could be terrible ideas. They could be like, hey, I have this brilliant idea. What if we gave away all of our services for free? Right? You don't want to be like, yes, and we'll pay people to take them, right? No, doesn't make any sense. Yes, and isn't about saying everything is amazing. It's not blindly agreeing to a concept. Yes, and as a mindset is solely about how do you take whatever the current situation is and build from there. How can you yes and that situation? Yes, I love that you're thinking about this, price conscious client family. And here are some parameters or some ideas to keep in mind. And it's not really about the literal phrase, yes, and, because someone could be like, we should do this. And you'd be like, yes, and you're an idiot. It's not the literal phrase. It's a mindset of yes, and. That is a fundamental mindset of improvisation. If you go to an improv show or you take an improv class, you'll see yes, and in action. Simply about building off of these ideas. The yes is saying, hey, I'm listening. I hear what you say. This is the current circumstance. And here's what's going to add to it. That and is really important. The and is the action that we're talking about. And we can take this principle of yes and apply it to our leadership. And if we do, we get to what we call the improv leadership mindset, which is 3 core principles: your purpose, respect, and ownership. Right? Purpose, respect, and ownership. This translates into how you can effectively lead through change, no matter what the change happens to be. Starting first with purpose. I'll ask you a very simple, maybe very obvious question, but what's the value of having a vision or a mission statement or a purpose? What's the value? Anyone have a thought? You can raise your hand or shout it out. It gives guidance, right? So you have an idea where to go. Any other thoughts of the value of having purpose or mission statement? Gives you something to aim for, a destination to go, something to shoot for, a common purpose, people that can be aligned to perhaps that common purpose as well. It also helps when change happens, because having a purpose doesn't mean having a script, right? Sears had a script. Kodak had a script. Blockbuster had a script. They had a, this is a way that we do things. But if you have a purpose, then you can say, okay, this is my purpose, and here's how I'm going to adjust when things change. The broader purpose allows you to adjust to changing winds, right? The way that the environment changes to client families, the fact that they're coming in perhaps with more knowledge because of something that they've seen on the internet or a TikTok video that they watched, right? Or changing preferences in terms of more eco-friendly options or more towards crematory options, except whatever the changes happen to be, changes in terms of the expectations of the people who you are hiring. All of these changes, if it still goes back to this purpose, allows you to adapt a little bit easier. But purpose isn't just about what is the organization's purpose. The biggest gap that we see in terms of leadership is also often the gap between the purpose of the organization and purpose for those individuals. Because in a study run by McKinsey, they found that 85% of senior leaders, senior executives, could feel like they could live their purpose in their day-to-day work, where only 15% of frontline employees felt they could do the same. Is that potentially the same for your organization? You as funeral professionals, as leaders, you can probably live that purpose. And I know many of you family business, you've grown up in this area. Now you get to lead it. You get to see that purpose. You get to see the positive impact every single day. But the people who work with you, do they have that same sense of purpose? Do they have that same sense of feeling like they're accomplishing stuff, or does it just feel like a job to them? And helping people connect to that purpose is really valuable as an organization. You see people more productive, they're healthier, they're more resilient, more likely to stay with an organization, there's stronger employee engagement, right? Making that connection becomes really, really key because purpose inspires productivity. It gets you to the point that, oh, I'm going to do the work that needs to be done. And that's what a ESN principle or mindset is. Yes, this is our purpose, and here's how it connects to me. Because happiness in the work that we do isn't about doing what you love, right? Because maybe you all get a chance to do what you love, but sometimes people, you just got to do what you love. Well, some people love watching Netflix. It's not a whole lot of jobs that you can do where that, watching Netflix is the result. So you got to change and just say, okay, how do I love the things that I already have to do? And how do I help my people do that? That's another yes and kind of mindset. And one way to do that is to think of celebrations, to think of these small moments, appreciation, etc. Something that my wife is particularly good at. I mentioned her a little bit before. We were on that same trip where I made a fool of myself. We ended that trip in Vienna. Anyone ever been to Vienna? Absolutely stunning. It's a gorgeous place. We're walking around Vienna on the first day, and my wife is like, here in Austria, they have this tradition. It was like 3 p.m. And I was like, hey, they have this tradition around 3 p.m. in the afternoon. There's a tradition called cake and champagne, which I never heard of. And it's like, apparently in the afternoons in Austria, people will get together, they'll celebrate even just small moments of life over cake and champagne, right? Slice of cake, share a glass of champagne. And it's meant like more as a daily thing. It's like, what are the different things that we can celebrate kind of each day? What has the positive been for that particular day? So we indulge in a little bit of cake and champagne the first day. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. Gets to be the second day around 3 p.m. or so. And I'm like, oh, hey, is it time for cake and champagne? So we're like, yep, we go and do that. We do that every single day that we're in Vienna. There about a week. And then we do it periodically as well after we've left Vienna. So like a year later, from when we were there on that trip, I'm doing a speaking event. There's an Austrian in the audience. And so I'm talking with him like, oh, my favorite thing about Austria was the cake and champagne tradition. And he was like, was ist das? So it turns out that my wife had made up the entire thing. There is no tradition of cake and champagne. It was just 3 p.m. and she wanted some champagne. She knows I love cake. So she put it together and told this whole story about how it's about appreciation and reflection and all that kind of. But here's the thing is we still do cake and champagne. We still use it as a moment to celebrate, sometimes more for the bigger wins, right? But it's back to the idea. What are the changes? What are the things that you are doing? Add a little bit of purpose and help people connect to their purpose a little bit more, to celebrate the small moments and the big moments, to recognize the input, the work that people are putting in, and encouraging them to connect the work that they do on a daily level to a bigger purpose, not just for the organization, but for themselves as a human, right? So that's that first principle, is around how do we get to a stronger purpose for ourselves and for our employees. The second is around creating a culture of respect. And this is another obvious one, right? Because we know that once we have a sense of purpose, we need to have a diverse team to help bring it together, right? We know the value of diversity. From a corporate side of things, obviously there's a lot of benefits to diversity. 35% more likely to have financial returns above average when you're in the top quartile of percentage in terms of diversity. A 95% higher return on equity when you have more diverse people a part of the board and leadership teams. And 76% of job seekers say diversity in the workforce is something that they are looking for. So obviously there is a business reason for seeking out diversity, both in terms of race and background and education, certainly across generations as well. So you can be like, what is going on TikTok? Why do we need this? Like, I still don't fully know. My team knows those types of things, right? So you have this diversity, but it also goes back to a very old management adage in terms of why we need this different focus. And it's ultimately because if two people think exactly the same, one of them is unnecessary, right? You want diverse thought, but you need to be able to support it. You need to be able to respect those different ideas. Anyone here read the book Smarter, Faster, Better? Has anyone read that? Phenomenal book by Charles Duhigg. Highly recommended. It's great for how do you make a more effective team, whether it's a very small team or a really big team. Smarter, Faster, Better. But in it, he talks about this research that was done at Google, because Google wanted to understand what makes for the most effective team. So they studied over 200 teams across 2 years total, I think, over 180 different attributes. Any thoughts in terms of what might have been the most important attribute for an effective team? Anything come to mind? Teamwork, yeah, right. Community, listening, right? Active listening, communication, etc. Right? These were all components of it, but ultimately they found that the number one most important attribute for an effective team was something called psychological safety. Psychological safety being defined as 2 things. One, that people felt like they could be their authentic self at work. They didn't have to put on a work face. And 2, that if they made a mistake, that they wouldn't be made fun of, reprimanded for that mistake, that it would be more of a learning opportunity. That's what yes and does. How do you create psychological safety? You say yes and, because when you know the other person is going to say yes and, you're more likely to be vulnerable. You're more likely to share ideas because they're going to find a thing that they're going to build off of, as opposed to yes, but you're less willing to take a risk. It's like, but what if they don't like this? What if they don't want to do that? And this is something that we need to practice and work on each day. This is a big gap in terms of that intention versus action, because no one's going to intend to like squash people down, but what do our actions actually say? Because here's my guess. This is just a guess. My guess is that many of you are likable people at home. And then for some of you, maybe just some of you, go into the workplace, where you look at all the things that have to be done for the various services and things or ceremonies, etc., that you're going through. And you become more of that shell of a human being. It becomes more about all the things that need to happen, right? That's, again, that gap between intention and action. But we have to recognize that we employ humans, right? Because I love what I do. I love getting a chance to go around and talk with different organizations. I love chatting with some of you last night. I love this experience. But I'll admit that I don't love any of you more than I love the people in this picture. Yep, this is my my wife, myself, my daughter when she was just a month old. She's a little over 2 now. Right? And this is going to be true for you as well. I mean, about your own families, not my family. That would be weird if you all loved my family more. Like, it'd be weird. Right? But we have to remember that we employ humans. And maybe, just maybe, the reason why they're a little delayed in doing something isn't because they secretly hate you and want the business to fail, but because they have a sick kid at home. or because they're going through something else, right? So we have to always remember that it starts with respect, because respect precedes results. Because the unleadership mindset, it's just like, no, when you're here, I'm paying for your time, so you have to be here, right? That doesn't really work. Yes, and leadership mindset is like, no, you are a human. Yes, you are a human. And here's how we adapt that. Here's how we understand that. Here's how we arrange around that. And it's about adapting to the individual person. Anyone here heard of how many of you know the golden rule? Right? You've heard of the golden rule to treat other people the way that you want to be treated, right? Pretty good rule. Anyone here heard of the platinum rule? Platinum rule, very slight distinction, very similar, very slight distinction is treat other people the way that they want to be treated, right? Important difference between the two. Because if I'm thinking of the golden rule, treat other people that I want to be treated, I love milkshakes, as I mentioned. So like if I do something good, if you want to like reward me, if you want to thank me, it's like take me out for a milkshake. I think that'll be amazing. We're here in Chicago, go to Portillo's, have a chocolate cake shake. That'll be fantastic, right? If I'm thinking of the golden rule, treat other people that I want to be treated, then it's like if you do something good for me, it's like I'm going to take you out for the biggest milkshake you have ever seen. If you're lactose intolerant, it's not a very good reward, right? And this applies a lot of times in other types of reward as well. My mom spent her entire career in HR, and for a long time she was an HR director at Gorilla Glue. And she was telling me one time around they had to do this big line change in manufacturing line over Thanksgiving. And so a bunch of the kind of factory group had to come in, manage this line change, et cetera. And so afterwards, they wanted to thank people for all their hard work. And so they gave all of them a bonus, a couple $1,000s in terms of a bonus for kind of coming in. And she was talking with one of the leaders afterwards, and he was like pretty happy about certainly the bonus. And he was like, but I'll be perfectly honest, I didn't need the extra $2,000 in my particular case. What I missed though was family time that I can't get back. Because you can't just have, that Thanksgiving necessarily the next weekend. Although I guess you could. You just like push it a little bit. It's like, but I would have loved a couple of extra days off to then be able to take my kids and celebrate. Now, to be perfectly clear, many of the people who got the $2,000 would have much rather that than the time off. But it's about understanding, okay, what about each individual person? What looks like recognition? What looks like support? What looks like encouragement to them? Thinking in terms of the platinum rule. Because no matter what your title is, no matter whether you are, the senior most person within the organization, or you think of yourself as a parent, or if you think of yourself as a spouse, et cetera, you are always ultimately a human first. You as an individual, unique person. So I want to do another very quick exercise. I want you to turn to a different person. Maybe it's turning the other direction. Turn to a different person. And I want you to answer a very simple question, or you go to the person behind you. And you're going to turn to the person, and I want you to answer the question, what is something that you think is true for you that you don't think is true for anyone else in this room? Okay, something that is true for you that you don't think is true for anyone else in this room. So you can't say, I work in the funeral service industry, right? All of you do. You just have to say something else. So if I was doing this exercise, I might say that I've spoken in all 50 US states, something kind of fun, or I've also had 4 milkshakes in one day, which is too many. I've learned, right? But that's something unique about me. So you're going to turn to the person, you're going to share something that you think is true for you that you don't think is true for anyone else in this room. For those of you joining virtually, feel free to adopt that in the chat, but go ahead and turn to a person, not the person that you were just talking about before, and answer that question. All right, excellent. We'll stop right there. We'll stop right there. And very nice. Someone from we'll start on this side over here. Anyone willing to share what either they learned about the person next to them or what they shared themselves about in terms of something that you think is true for you that you don't think is true for anyone else in the room? Anyone willing to share?
Oh, I'll do it.
Yeah, excellent.
Because it's not very personal. I am the third daughter of a third generation funeral home owner and a fourth generation funeral home owner. Anyone else fit that?
Wow, that's a lot of generations. That's very, very nice. Excellent. So a lot of generations within that. So that's a great example of something that's a little bit different. Anyone else have something from over here, something that they shared or willing to share? Yeah.
In 2020, I had COVID. I was intubated for 14 days and in the hospital for 22 and almost died.
Wow. Round of applause. So I think that is the most positive way I've ever heard anyone say an almost died. Exactly. That's the success of having coming back from that as phenomenal. So that's a great example. Someone from over here is willing to share something that's true for them. Yeah.
I'm a first generation funeral director, but I was raised on a farm, and I say I'd rather be driving a tractor than a hearse. The one I shared it with said he'd rather be driving a boat.
Actually, yeah, we probably all have the different vehicles we'd rather drive than the hearse, boat, tractor. I love that. So farming as well. These are phenomenal kind of things, right? Connections of a little bit of human. We'll do one more. Anyone from the middle? One more, something that you shared, something that's true for you that you don't think is true. All the way in the back. Come in.
This is not true for me, but my friend here, Todd, has bees in his backyard. I mean, he has a beehive in his backyard.
Like intentionally?
Like intentionally.
Okay. All right. I have a couple of questions, Todd. Can I ask you a question? Okay. So does that, are you a beekeeper?
I am.
Okay. And how many times do you get stung in a year?
3 or 4.
Okay. And you're still like, yup, bees are staying.
It's usually my fault that I'm stung, not theirs.
Wow. Well, I feel like that's almost like a life perspective right there, right? About people. Like, we're not blaming the bees for being bees. We're blaming you. Like, wow, that's actually a really, really powerful thing. And then what are the bees there for? Like to keep strangers away? For, like, do you eat the honey?
Enjoyment.
Enjoyment, like you love the process.
Yes, I make very little honey, but my neighbors enjoy it. They stop me and say, "I saw your bees on my front porch this morning on my flowers."
So. That is amazing. Yeah, I saw your bees on your front porch, so I stayed away, but I saw them there.
Yes.
That is amazing, fantastic, excellent. Round of applause for all the people that shared. That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing those. Right, so these are all components of people being human. I've done this exercise with tons of audiences and have met fascinating people in all parts of parts of the world. I have met someone who's a project manager on 4 different nuclear power plants, met Madonna's first agent. My favorite though, I was doing this in front of a bunch of 200 like software engineers, and this gentleman in the front row, and I asked, what's something that's true for you that you don't think is true for anyone else in the room? And he was like, well, I think I'm handsome. Insulting me and everyone else in here, right? But the whole point is that this connects us again at that human level, right? It's not thinking about this person as an employee or a potential client, et cetera. It's about who they are as people first. That's that mindset. That's what I mean by this aspect of respect, is connecting back on the human level. And ultimately comes down to ownership, because once you have purpose and respect for the organization and a diverse team to build it, you want to build ownership in the individuals for the work that they do, to create a sense of the feeling that they have autonomy in some ways in what they work on. Because you get benefits of that as an organization. You see stronger job performance, higher job satisfaction, work-life balance, et cetera, all of these different benefits. And it makes tremendous sense. Why? Because if you're trying to prescript or plan out every single aspect of what someone does with no autonomy whatsoever, that's not particularly exciting. So I can demonstrate that. Could you come up on stage and help me for just a second? Yes. What's your name?
Christopher.
Christopher. Round of applause for Christopher. Excellent. Thank you, Christopher. You're going to stand right there. Excellent. And Christopher, go ahead and turn towards me. Fantastic. And let's see, go ahead and lift your right foot. Perfect. And set that about 6 inches in front of you and set it down. Yeah, perfect. And now lift your left foot. Perfect. Bring that about 6 inches. There you go. And the right foot again. Yeah. And hold stop about 4.5 inches. But right there. Yep. Perfect. Fantastic. I could just say, could you walk here? Right. But instead, I'm micromanaging every aspect of the process. Right. Very annoying to have to walk like this. Right. Probably very annoying to have to work for as well. Give yourself give Chris a round of applause. Thank you for joining us today. Simple demonstration. Right. Obviously a little bit tongue in cheek, but are we doing that in terms with our people as well? Understand that there's going to be certain things that have to be done a very specific way, but there's other things where people may be able to have a little bit more autonomy, a little bit more ownership in the work that they do. What can that ownership look like? Well, it can be encouraging people to stay educated on what the priorities of the organization happen to be. How do you push and encourage that a little bit more? Could be saying, okay, how do we add just a little bit more value every single day? How do we stay engaged in the work? What are you doing? Kind of how we come in? How are we having meetings kind of in the morning or stand-up meetings or initial conversations to say, okay, what is the focus? How can we be nimble? How can we adjust, learn things? And then ultimately, how do we stay client family focused? How do we focus on what's most important for them? These are all aspects of what ownership can look like. And ownership ultimately creates opportunity for the individual and for the organization. Because now you have people starting to think outside of just, hey, this is a thing that I have to do, but oh, what are these other possibilities? One aspect of ownership that I think is really, really key, that you play a really instrumental role in helping to support, is how much people enjoy their work. And an unleadership mindset is like, what do you mean enjoy their work? Right? Work is supposed to feel like work. That's what I was told early on in my career when I started talking about this idea or concept of humor and improv in the business. People were like, people would tell me sometimes, they're like, if work was supposed to be fun, they would call it play. What an interesting mindset to have. Other people have had this other mindset too of like, well, I struggled, I had to suffer, so you're going to as well. Which is a weird sense of progress to me, right? Isn't the whole point of progress to say things are better for you than they were for me because we've gotten to this point? Right? Ownership is not just in terms of individual tasks, but in terms of how people enjoy the things that they do. Because I do believe that you are responsible for your own happiness, which also means your people are responsible for their own happiness. But you play a tremendous role in terms of how that can work. And I encourage you to think about, okay, how do we make things just a little bit more fun? How do we bring a little bit more joy? Because you do have a big impact on how they perceive their day. And people are sometimes wondering, like, why humor? Why fun? Why is that something important? So I want to ask you a very simple, very important, very dumb question. Okay, very simple, very important, very dumb question is, would you rather do something that is fun or not fun? Okay. Quick show of hands, how many of you say fun? Right? Anyone say not fun? Like, no, like 99.9% of humans say fun, right? So it stands to reason then if you were to say, make your meetings with people a little bit more fun, would they be more likely to pay attention? If you're to make your emails or phone conversations with people a little bit more fun, would they be more likely to respond? If you're to make your own work culture environment just a little bit more fun, would people be more engaged, willing to stay longer, et cetera? And the research shows us the answer is yes. There's 10 plus benefits to using humor as a cultural organization, things like morale, positive workplace culture, improving job satisfaction, et cetera, right? There's tremendous benefits to using humor. So I ask you, what do you think is the number one reason why people don't use more humor in the work that they do? Anyone have a thought? Yeah, it's uncomfortable. They're unsure. They're worried they might offend people, right? They might be seen as unprofessional, right? You work in a really serious organization, you don't want to offend people as well. Number one reason, we ran a study of over 1,000 people across multiple different industries. Number one reason why they didn't use more humor in the workplace, they didn't think their boss or coworkers would approve. Which means if you don't have a team yourself of people who are laughing and smiling, enjoying their work, you are probably part of the reason why. Probably not maliciously, hopefully not intentionally, but again, there might be this gap between your intention and action. And how are you encouraging humor in the workplace? And there's a number of different ways to do that, but one of the most important is to use humor yourself. Find ways to add a little bit of levity, a little bit of joy into the process and encourage it of other people. But like, hey, how can you find a little bit more fun in this task that you have to do? How can you make this a little bit more enjoyable? Small moments throughout the day that can help you to have a little bit more fun, to encourage people to relieve that stress a little bit more. And that's the improv leadership mindset. Simply to think more about your purpose and have clear ideas for it, respect other people, treating them as humans first, and creating intention with this ownership. And yes, and kind of applies across all of that. So as I mentioned, we got to end on next steps. What are you going to actually do differently as a result? So I want to ask you this question, sometimes a little bit controversial, because everything that we talk about doesn't really matter if nothing actually changes. But I want to ask you this question. It's a little controversial. If you say you are going to do something and then you do not do it, did you lie? Yes or no? Yes, no, yes. Yes, I would say yes. Right? If you say you're going to do something and then you do not do it, technically you lied. Probably not maliciously, right? But technically you lied. So if you say something like, our meeting's going to start at 9 o'clock and it's 9:07 and it hasn't started yet, technically you lied. If you say, I'm going to get the email back to you by Tuesday and it's now Thursday, technically you lied. You say, hey, I'm going to bring all these principles back from this great conference that I went to, this annual meeting, all these ideas, and then you never implement any of them. Technically, you lie. And any one of those individually may not be a big deal, but as you stack them up over time, people stop believing in what you're going to say. Like, oh, you're talking about this new change or this new initiative or this new way that we're going to do things. Like, why would I believe you when the last 3 times didn't actually work? Because knowing matters, but doing matters even more. So what are you going to do differently as a result of today? What are you going to do differently as a result of your experience here at Selected? I'd encourage you to think about that, to walk away when you leave, ultimately to have a list. What are the things that you're actually going to implement? Because yes, it's a family reunion kind of feel. Part of this is just about reconnecting with other people, finding like-minded people, building and restoring those connections, etc. But it's also about how do you make your business better? That's the whole focus. How do you serve client families even better? We'll walk away with a to-do list. From what we've talked about today, I'll give you 3 things to think about. First of all, go back and make sure that your people understand what the purpose mission is of your organization, but also try to ask them, learn more about them and say, how does this purpose and what you do here connect with your bigger purpose in life, the things that you want to accomplish, the things you want to achieve? How does that connect? So that's going to make a stronger engagement. Number 2 is build more respect, practice, or create psychological safety. And the easiest way to do that is simply say, how can I say yes and more? How can I practice yes and as much as possible? And then the third one is, how do you create ownership? How do you create this sense of joy, and how do you create a little bit more humor, levity in the workplace? Pick one thing that you can do kind of on a daily basis today. This is about adding a little bit more fun or a little bit more joy into the process. Now, if you want additional resources, this is just kind of all of what we talked about today is one chapter in the book that we wrote called The Humor That Works. If you want a free digital download of that book, just go to the QR code on the screen or go to humor.me/selected. You can get a free, completely free download of the entire book where you can learn more about humor, answer a couple of quick questions, and then we'll share that with you. So you have that. To close out, I started today by talking about the most impactful piece of advice that I have ever heard, right? Better to beg for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. But the reality is that it's just a cliche. It's just a word, right? Just a set of kind of words. It was the action that came afterwards. And that's what's really interesting about cliches is sometimes they inspire us, sometimes they motivate us, sometimes they do a little bit of nothing. But if you look at different cliches, you have different understandings of what our purpose may be. And I don't know if you ever thought about this, like I've thought about like, what is the meaning of life? And you look at cliches, there's a couple of possibilities. Because like maybe the meaning of life is money, right? After all, they say money makes the world go round. And to make ends meet, you got to make that bread and start rolling in the dough. But dough, a deer, female deer, is nothing if the buck stops right here. Right? And so I'm not saying she's a gold digger, but more money, more problems. So you better check yourself before you wreck yourself, because money can't buy happiness, right? But don't worry, be happy and live happily ever after in a land far, far away where the tomorrow's only a day when there's light at the end of the tunnel. So to pass with flying colors, don't color outside the lines, but think outside the box. No, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but things don't add up. If it's the thought that counts and it's better to give than receive, then sharing is caring. But Jimmy cracked corn and I don't care. Because crack is whack and it's hugs, not drugs, so put that in your pipe and smoke it. But do you just say no, or do you just do it? If impossible is nothing, then the mission impossible ain't nothing but a G thing, baby. So stop. collaborate, and listen. Right? Because maybe the meaning of life isn't money, maybe the meaning of life is knowledge. Because knowledge is power. With great power comes great responsibility. So don't just drink responsibly, but think responsibly. Because I know what you did last summer. But knowing is half the battle. And is it a battle of the wits or a battle to the death? Is a pin mightier than the sword, or is it a sword in the stone that can break the bones when words will never hurt me? Because beauty is only skin deep. And if looks can kill and I wear my heart in my sleeve, then I'm armed and dangerous. There's no place like home, sweet home, Alabama. But that's just my state of mind and the state of the now, the status quo. I say carpe diem if it's quid pro quo, get yourself tit for tat and break me off a piece of that. So eat great even late, because if you're hungry, why wait? Except patience is a virtue. So don't stop believing, but stop in the name of love. Because maybe the meaning of life isn't money or knowledge. Maybe the meaning of life is love. And what's love got to do with it? Got to do with it? Well, all is fair in love and war, and love conquers all. And even if you've lost that loving feeling, know that it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Because there are plenty of fish in the sea, and when love is in the air, you'll be walking on cloud 9. But when it rains, it pours, and if you're under the weather and can't see through the fog, then we may not see eye to eye. And if love is blind and hindsight is 20/20, then is love at first sight really meant to be? Or not to be? And that's the question. And if you've got questions, we've got answers. If you can do it, we can help. Because when you're here, your family and family matters as you step by step through the wonder years. Because what goes up must come down. What goes around comes around. Because there's nothing to fear but fear itself. When the going is tough, the tough get going. No pain, no gain, no guts, no glory. And at the end of the day, you got to do it for the story. Because to live and learn, you have to crash and burn, and the only failure is quitting. But in order to live a life that's worth living, you need to take the time to actually do so. So maybe it's about stop hammer time. Because maybe the meaning of life isn't money, knowledge, or love. Maybe the meaning of life is to find meaning in life. Or maybe it's kicking champagne. You all been fantastic. I've been Andrew Tarvin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew, for that outstanding presentation. Let's give him another round of applause. My wife just whispered to me, we're going to follow that cake and champagne idea. I think we might start that tonight. Oh, what a great way to start our meeting. Before we head to a break, I want to share a few announcements. Those of you here in Chicago should head down the escalator to the Grand Ballroom A and B for refreshments and to visit our preferred partner displays. Then at 11 o'clock, please be sure to check the first round of Conversation Cafe presentations. At 11:45, the general lunch will be served in Grand Ballroom C. However, selected members in the first gen and next gen communities are invited to the community luncheons in the Jackson and Saramark meeting rooms. And don't forget, everyone is invited to check out the Educational Trust silent auction and place your bids. With that, our opening session is concluded, but our annual meeting is just getting started. Thank you all for joining us both here in Chicago and via Zoom for what promises to be another memorable selected annual meeting. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Ooh, jazzy, bounce, dance, as we get on the melodic scene. Welcome to the moment to dress the MC. Sweet sugar pop, rocks and pop. You don't stop till the sweet beat drops. I saw improvement because they can move. Your tones are silent on top of the groove. Smooth, mind, nothing like a butterfly. Instead of sounding like a lullaby, brace yourself as the beat hits. Dip you up, dance things up. Thank you.
The beats rock, jazz and hip hop, tripping in the dome, it's its own rock. Simplify illusion, keep coasting on the rhythm creeps, they up and down the down, but nevertheless, you got to be down. And it's the beat from the beat, so you need to move your feet, the sweat from the heat, back to the back.